Hey everybody, I'm here with Selena Eldridge. Selena is our regional director in Anne Arundel County. Selena, tell everybody what year was it that you became the regional director and licensee in Anne Arundel County?
2008.
Okay, wow, so you've been at this 10 years. This is a good
May.
time
In
to
May
be,
it was 10 years, yep.
so this is a 10-year celebration, like 6 months late or something like that. So tell me, what in the first place, because I know this is kind of a second or third career of sorts for you. Explain to me what brought you into the mental health field.
My own poor mental health at one time in my life. I grew up in an alcoholic, abusive, neglectful home, and unfortunately, like the stories of many, including sexual abuse as well in my home, my family of origin, and so needless to say, I was. I was pretty messed up for quite a while, and it was really the grace of God and great therapists that helped change my life and the trajectory of my life. And so, I did get involved with drugs and alcohol along the way, and when I finally put the plug in the jug, so to speak, and got sober. I realized that I wanted to be more productive, do a job that was more productive and useful. My former career was restaurant bar business. I was in that for 23 years.
Right.
And I didn't enjoy the last 10 years of it, and I didn't want to stay there. So I started undergrad at 32, got my graduate degree at 48, and here I am.
Wow. So you mentioned, and the restaurant business is a hard business. I mean, I think a lot of us have waited tables at one point or another, and I certainly did for more years than I had planned on and wanted to. So you mentioned the grace of God in there. Tell us in just a few seconds, like kind of how did your spiritual awakening of sorts contribute to your call into the mental health field?
Well, I ended up needing to go. I went away for a year into a home for women up in New York. It's a sister program, a teen challenge. I tried a outpatient 28-day, and then I jumped right on into the year.
Wow.
When those two things didn't work, I was dying, really. I'm not being dramatic. I looked like I was malnourished when I went. I mean, the whole 9 yards. So, up there is really where I had my spiritual awakening period, and then in that process, I had started undergrad just for a few years, and my undergrad was psychology. I was always drawn to that, probably because I was trying to figure out, what was going on in my own internal world and my own life. And then I did an internship at Grace Fellowship Church in their life recovery ministry, and it became very evident that within 2 months of working there, I had a full schedule with back-to-back people wanting to come in and see me one-on-one. And Jeff Smith said, I think you're a counselor. And it wasn't far off the mark, because I was already finishing my undergrad in psychology, so it was a pretty natural.
Right.
It wasn't like I decided to become a counselor. It was like other people decided I was a counselor.
You just kept doing
the memo.
You just kept doing the next thing, and before you knew it, you had a diploma that said Masters of Science from Johns Hopkins University.
That's right.
And you were a regional director at Safe Harbor.
Yeah, at the same time.
and I can say, too, just wow, you did your internship with us way back when. I mean, we've been at this like a dozen years, probably, and I can say you're somebody that is your story. You've embraced parts of your story and entered into your own growth process that people sense a level of authenticity that they are drawn to, and that's. I would say that's the biggest thing, both with your clients and as a director, that people see is a genuineness and a level of, you've lived the hard things in life. I mean, I know there's trials now too that we don't even have time to get into health-wise. But you're somebody who has allowed the grace of God and the presence of God through your trials and the bumps in the road to make you better and refine you, which is
Amen.
people
Thank
are
you.
drawn to that.
Amen.
So enough about you for a second. Tell us about a life that's been changed in Anne Arundel County. Give us
Well,
like the 60-second version of that.
I've recently had the opportunity to interact with a client who needed to switch from one counselor to another.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a hard switch for her based on her particular, diagnosis and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. And she was really devastated by needing to switch counselors. She's really allowed me to come alongside and shepherd that process, and trust me, she hardly knew me. She loved her former counselor, and her words, I'm depressed that,
Mm.
I can't be with her. However, the really cool thing with the changed life is, this woman has a difficult diagnosis, and one that we rarely see a lot of change with. It's a slow, it's a personality disorder, and so
Wow.
there's, slow moving to change, and she, I can tell based on my interaction with her and knowing what I know about this particular personality disorder, I can tell that she has had an amazing amount of growth, and attributes that to her former counselor. She said she'd been with her for a year, and so she had nothing but high praises, and really credits the tremendous change and healing and growth that she currently has to her former counselor.
Right, which was one of the counselors in our Anne Arundel County practice.
Yes, yes.
What would you say is the biggest change that has occurred in her?
Trusting, and um, uh, just the personality disorder she deals with. Abandonment is a hallmark.
Right.
Feeling whether it's accurate or not. That's a tremendous struggle. With this a borderline,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so just her. She's gentle and sweet, and this woman, and she stressed, but she really, I can just watch her. Well, not watch, hear her, because all my interactions have been
Right.
on the phone. I can just hear her, stepping back from the process, her internal upheaval, if you
Yeah.
will, and saying, okay, I've had so much growth, I don't want to lose that. And so even just allowing me to shepherd the process, because she doesn't know
Right.
me. It takes such a long time to build trust for
Yes.
these folks and to trust others. And she even sent a text saying, "Thanks for adopting me in the interim, to getting me
Mm-hmm.
to a new counselor, because
Right.
I really needed somebody I could trust for the process to
Right.
while I was working on getting her plugged in with somebody else." And
Yeah. So what sounds like what you're saying, what I hear unfolding is a woman with borderline personality disorder, which is one of the most challenging types of cases any therapist would deal with, is learning to be vulnerable. You didn't use that word, but
yes,
when you said gentle and sweet, she's learning to be vulnerable and learning to trust other people. Which, I
yes,
mean, you can't have a connected relationship with people, which covers everybody in your life, or God, if you don't have vulnerability and trust at some level. So I mean that's huge.
it is
Doing
huge.
that for her,
Yeah,
um, and people watching this, if you in your spare time, um, during the commercial on Criminal Minds or something, Google borderline personality disorder, you'll see what a monumental thing this is for somebody to enter into that new space emotionally and relationally that has borderline, and also it sounds like she's owning the process, which is
yes,
huge with a borderline diagnosis, for somebody to say, you know what, it's not everybody else that's the problem. I have to own some things for myself, and I'm embracing a growth process that I have boundaries and guardrails around, because I don't want to let destructive patterns play out in my life. That's ownership, and
yes.
that's really huge. Selena, lastly, in the last 30 seconds we have here, Tell us all just something unique about yourself, that's different from other people, maybe something that people wouldn't necessarily know, just the human side of you.
I've been told by two different medical professionals that I've saved someone's life, two separate people on two
Wow.
different occasions. So I think I'm great to have around in emergencies. I just I just have this gear, that I shift into. My dear friend says when there's a crisis, there's just this peaceful uh, energy that comes
Wow.
over you, and you just press in and move towards it. She said, I'm like, and run for the hills, and she said, she was testifying to what she saw in me that
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
never been able to see. But I did the Heimlich on a woman who was actually turned out to be a nurse. She was choking on cotton candy at the stadium after an Orioles game.
Oh, wow.
Swears I saved her life. And then when
Cool.
I was 15, I was at a party with alcohol, and there was a fight, and the guy put his arm, he fell through a double paned window, pulled it back out, and just flayed open his entire arm,
Oh,
and
my
it was
goodness.
brutal. And so I responded in a way where, that the surgeon came out and asked me how I knew not to tourniquet the arm, and I said I didn't. I didn't know anything. I just responded, and the
Boy,
surgeon said, you definitely saved his arm by not putting a tourniquet on it to stop the bleeding, and you might have saved his life.
boy. Well, maybe come this next baseball season, some of that Orioles magic you have a rub off on the team. I hope so. All right, Selena, thanks
Thanks.
for what you do.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing some of yourself. I'll talk to you later.
All right. God bless.
Bye.